G'day, welcome to Coach Fantasy. It's a Wednesday roundup. Coach Fantasy brought to you by checkmyrates.au. Visit the website, it's free to use. Take control of your financial future, and with home loan rates on the rise, Brandon and the team can get you a better deal. Just mention the Goat Fantasy podcast. I'm your host, Drew Jones. Thanks for joining us. So we've got a mailbag which is going to be dropping fairly soon. But I just wanted to get ahead of the game with a few news updates, because this is the bread and butter of Goat Fantasy, and I don't want to move away from that. We've got the regular podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, of course, but just getting back to the short and sharp stuff that this is all built on. A few notes have just been building up on my phone from the last 24 hours or so, so I just want to touch on a few of those. So Christian Petracca was an interesting one. So a few people have held across Supercoach and Fantasy, and then just to have that extra week look at the forwards. And then it was interesting yesterday, it certainly got my attention, the Gold Coast injury update, which listed Petracca as short term and then a little bit further down saying 1 to 3 weeks. So I've spoken to the club and they say that it's closer to 3 than 1. So yeah, it's a bit funny, the wording. I guess there's a world out there where maybe he only misses 1 more game, but it's a big risk when it could be 3 more games. And yeah, the initial steer that I've been given is that more likely to be 2 or 3 than 1. So proceed with caution if you are thinking about holding Petracca. I guess if you had enough else to do and you had enough money in the bank, then sure, you could roll the dice on 1 week. But I think it's pretty unlikely that we'll see him return this week, unfortunately, as great as that would be. I think you can make that move to Rochelle or Bolton or wherever you want to this week fairly safely. I guess another pretty popular player this week for discussion is Colby McKercher. So uncertain role to start the year, low game time. You know, we all know the story by now, but flicked back by Alistair Clarkson last week against Essendon, and he took advantage of the matchup, which was always going to be pretty fruitful for the defenders, and we saw a massive one from Luke Parker as well. But I think we just needed a bit more confirmation this week about what the role was going to be, and he certainly moved into the midfield late in the game against Essendon. So he trained at the main session at Arden Street today with the backs. Caleb Daniel trained with the forwards, which I think is a great sign. And I think if he plays halfback and midfield, that's a great result. And if the time on ground keeps rising, up towards that 80-85%, then that's sort of the level that we're hoping for. He's got all the pig tendencies. His break even is back at a much more manageable level where the price is going to start going north. So I think if there's a space for you to upgrade a Blackiston or a Caleb Windsor or sideways a Wayne Miller, I think you can absolutely go this week against a pretty average Carlton side. But yeah, we're getting him at a good price, and we're all dead keen on him in the pre-season, so it's not a whole lot different. You can also make the argument that yes, after another week of data, the price isn't going to get out of hand if there's other things that you need to do, but certainly I think we're pretty safe to pull the trigger on Colby this week. And then Luke Parker again training down back. Actually requested to speak to Luke Parker this week, and there was probably some selfish reasons behind that for the podcast, which was all set to happen today, but then fell through unfortunately, just to get a better idea of how permanent this defensive role is going to be. But I would tick off a move from Parrish to Parker. He's a step below, of course, the absolute uber premiums, but the role is pretty nice for his price. Looks like Callum Coleman-Jones will get first crack at Tristan Sherry's role in the ruck. I think Darling probably comes back to play sort of the bullocking second ruck / forward. Tyler Goad, I don't think he's quite ready to go from a fitness perspective with that carrying an ankle injury for a while. So if you've got Tristan Sherry 3 weeks out, Max Gawn, absolute beast mode right now. And then Brodie Grundy, although his scores have been underwhelming, he's got the easy West Coast matchup coming off the bye this week. Perhaps that's somewhere we could look. And then just from a ruck perspective, while we're on the subject, there's no doubt Matthew Nicks made every attempt to talk up Riley O'Brien in his news conference on Wednesday. and he scored something like 160 in Supercoach in the twos, which is not at all surprising. He's clearly going to dominate that level, so I'm not sure that's really a big issue. I think McKercher has been pretty good for the Crows across the first 3 weeks. Just a question of whether there's an element of we're coming up against Darcy and Jackson. Do we need 2 rucks to match up against them? And they're also 1 and 2, so do they need to change these up a little bit? Whether that's an area of concern for them, who knows? They have flicked through the different options as the second ruck. They've tried Murray in there, and they've tried last week Finbar, Maley. What's their preferred mix? Tex Walker comes back into the side. I think in a perfect world for Matthew Nicks, probably Riley Philthorpe is the second ruck, but they've been experimenting with him in different spots on the ground. So, yeah, let's wait and see how it pans out. But I think we probably need a plan just in case. Like when teams drop tomorrow night, if Riley O'Brien's in, there's a strong consideration as to whether you move on your rucks or whether you have a look at it with best 18 for another week. There's going to be some big decisions that need to be made if teams don't go our way. Just from a Crows perspective, Jordan Dawson will be back from a calf. Looks like Laird will miss another week. Chera is back for the Blues. That was named up by Voss today. And then really annoying Devon Robertson being suspended for a week for the Eagles for that tackle on Zach Butters. So there's a chance Finn McRae comes in, but I'm not sure he's going to make a huge impact for us fantasy-wise. He would have to play really well to sort of keep a spot in that team for a significant period of time. I think McCarthy and Baker play a bit of extra midfield for West Coast. And just noting that Milan Murdoch now listed as 3 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, if you're at a loss and you don't have anything else to do, there's a potential that you could flick him out and bring him back in a few weeks as a downgrade because he's still got a lot of cash to make. It's just not going to be anytime soon for us. And, we've got Farrow sitting there. We've got Watkins. Potentially could make us a bit of money. I think the 9 CBAs for Watkins is something worth just keeping an eye on, but he wasn't Port Adelaide's worst last week. You'd think that Wines comes in for Will Brodie there. So there's a few rooks around, but there's no one like really leaping off the page. I think Farrow's sort of the best of them. So, you could probably afford to hold on to Murdoch for, the duration if there's nothing else you need to do. That's all for now. We've got the mailbag coming up soon from Go Fantasy, but just wanted to touch on a few newsy tidbits from the day. We'll chat soon. Keep coming back to Go Fantasy. Appreciate the support.